Good afternoon. It's Diane Sayre, LaRouche independent candidate for U.S. Senate against Chuck Schumer. I just have a very short update today. I mentioned when I was speaking about the fires in the Bronx that we are on the brink of thermonuclear war, and most people are not aware of this. In fact, most Americans are not aware that there were a bunch of insane senators visiting Ukraine, and the last few days they just came back and gave an insane report. So I want to set the record straight. There is not a threat of Russia invading Ukraine, but NATO does have 10,000 troops there, including 4,000 Americans. And if you want to understand the situation in Ukraine, you have to go back to 2013, 2014, when Victoria Nuland of the Barack Obama administration, with $5 billion from the National Endowment for Democracy and George Soros, overthrew the Yanukovych government in a violent coup with people hurling Molotov cocktails, setting police on fire, beating parliamentarians up with baseball bats. Senator Schumer, Chuck Schumer, and Senator Melendez of New Jersey and Barack Obama called this a peaceful revolution, maybe why they like the Antifa so much. So the government was overthrown, and a new government came in 2014, which was very sympathetic to the collaborator of the Nazis, Stepan Bandera, who was notorious for being particularly brutal in his murder of Poles, Jews, and Russians. And under even the Zelensky presidency, there are regular torchlight vigils celebrating Stepan Bandera in Ukraine. It would be like Germany having torchlight vigils celebrating Adolf Hitler. It's somewhat unimaginable. And if you are Russian, and you know that 1 out of 6 Russians died in World War II because of the Nazi invasion, then you wouldn't take very kindly to having a pro-Nazi regime in Ukraine. Now, what happened in Odessa in 2014 was that a group of Russian speakers were herded inside a labor union building, which was boarded up and set on fire. So Crimea, which is over 90% Russian, held a referendum. Putin did not invade Crimea, even though the base at Sevastopol has been there for many, since Catherine the Great, but this military base has been in Crimea for some time, but there was no invasion. They had a referendum. 96% of the people of Crimea voted to leave Ukraine and rejoin the Russian Federation, because if you're going to be burned alive for speaking Russian, you may not wish to be there. So Russia has said that this is a red line, that they will not tolerate ethnic cleansing of the Russian populations in the eastern part of the country, Lugansk, Donetsk, this area. The United States is creating a clamor over nothing, except what really is behind this is the blowout of the transatlantic financial system. And that's what was behind the original regime change, because the West wanted Ukraine to just be a supply of cheap labor, cheap raw materials for Western Europe, and to not trade with Russia. And that was the original disagreement with the Yanukovych regime. So Putin has made some very clear proposals that must be discussed. He said, since NATO has violated everything that was promised him by people, or promised Russia by people in the Reagan administration when Germany was reunified, namely that NATO would not move 1 inch to the east, and NATO has now moved about 1,000 kilometers to the east. He wants written agreements that there will be no expansion of NATO, that Ukraine will not join NATO, that we will not place nuclear weapons in any more of these countries, eliminating the ability to launch a response to a nuclear war. Senator Roger Wicker said we should not rule out a first use of nuclear weapons against Russia over Ukraine, just to show you how psycho he is. So It's actually a very dangerous situation. Putin is correct in what he is saying. The United States does not have a strategic interest here, and we should actually, change the policy of the United States to collaborate with Russia, with China, and address the major threats facing mankind, which are the pandemic and starvation and the lack of energy that's being imposed on us by the Green New Deal.